before you long. I think, Vince, you said I had about 2 hours to give this presentation. Was that correct?
No, you have 3.
3 hours. Okay, I'll make sure it's quick. So real quick before I get started, there's some scholarship opportunities, brothers. Please make sure that you take advantage of those opportunities or these opportunities. That's what we are here for, to build you up in these areas. So please take advantage of that. So I'm not going to be before you long. Let's start off with our first. I was having technical difficulties. Thank you, Geraldo, for bringing that up. So the first point that I want to make is just the general body meeting. We're going to be talking about conscious future, destined for greatness. You know what today is, and I'm Tony Little, the MSA director. So if you can go to the next one, please. So I'm not sure if you can see that, but what I wanted to do is just reiterate our creed concerning conscious. And it simply says this. It says, we recognize that we stand on the shoulders of our forefathers. We understand that our decisions today will affect our tomorrow. We are conscious of the ever-present realities of inequality and oppression, yet we remain vigilant in thought and action. We remain vigilant in thought and action, attempting to offset the status quo. So that's from our the conscious section of our creed that we have been focused on this past year or this past academic semester. And so what I was speaking on tonight will speak directly to this part of conscious. If you can go to the next slide, please. So I know that you're taking notes and writing things down, even some of you at work. So I jokingly said, don't get fired, but I appreciate your commitment. So there's 3 things that we're going to talk about in these 15, 20 minutes. The first one is commit to understanding who you are. Commit to understanding who you are. The second point that we're going to discuss is commit to understanding the framework. And then the third one is to commit to dismantling and building. So again, it's commit to understanding who you are, commit to understanding the framework, and commit to dismantling and building. You can go to the next slide. And so before we actually get into it, I wanted to offer some definitions to make sure that we're all on the same page, the same understanding. So the first one is conscious. I don't want to make the assumption that everybody understands what we mean by conscious. So in the context of this presentation, I'm offering these definitions for your understanding. 1, conscious is 1, aware of and responding to one's surroundings, being awake and deliberate with intention. And 2, our awareness of ourselves and environment around us. So many times we hear this term, I'm woke. And so it directly speaks to our consciousness when we say that we're woke. It is critical. See, some of y'all thought I was asleep, but the reality is that when you are not woke and you are asleep, you miss the point. You miss what's going on around you and you miss the surroundings. So that was just an illustration. I'm not, wasn't really asleep or have epilepsy, so I'm okay. So the first one is conscious. The second one is greatness. Greatness is not talking about being the GOAT, G-O-A-T, the greatest of all times. I'm not talking about that when it comes to greatness. I want to give you a definition. Greatness is not defined by society. Greatness is not defined by how much money you make, the type of car that you drive, how much better you are than someone else. Greatness is not defined by how many likes you have, how many followers you have, how popular you are on TikTok or Instagram or Twitter. That's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about greatness. Greatness is defined, or I should say, you define your greatness. The way in which you are great cannot be compared to someone else. So the first thing that I really want us to understand is that we get so upset and discouraged when we begin to compare ourselves to other people. Well, I'm not like that person. I'm not like him. I don't have that many followers. I can't dance like him or her. And our greatness should be defined by us and not compared to other people. Greatness looks different on every last one of us. True greatness is shown, and this is the key point that I want us to understand. True greatness is shown through one's work and one's actions, the way in which you impact the lives of others. That's true greatness. How much I can positively affect my brothers and my sisters, my friends, my community, society. That determines how great someone is, and not these other things that we as society has made up or sort of said that what is great. The third definition is destined. Simply put, developing according to plan for intended purpose. That's what I'm referring to when I talk about destined. What plan do you have? So whether your plan is what you have created, whether it's a higher being, a higher calling, whatever it is, there is a plan that is set for you. That's destined. And then the last thing I want to share in terms of definition is destiny decisions. So decisions are critical and very important. And I think we lose fact and understanding that every decision we make could potentially affect our destiny. So what girlfriend you get, what job you take, what school you go to, where you live, what city you move to, what friends you hang around, things that you do, things that you don't do, could potentially affect your destiny. And I think that some of us don't fully understand the ripple effect of some of the decisions that we make. So I think it's critical that we understand these 4 points. So again, 1, conscious; 2, destined; 3, destiny decisions; and 4, greatness. So those are the definitions. Geraldo, you can actually take it down for right now, then we'll come back for that last slide. So the first thing that we're going to talk about again is committing to understanding who you are, committing to understanding who you are. So the first question I have for all of us is, who are you? Who are you right now? Or is who you are, has it been defined by somebody else in your life? At the very foundation of everything we're discussing, we have to have a conscious understanding of who we are as individuals. So a quick question, and I need about 2-3 people to answer. So if you'll be ready, explain to me real quick, why is that important? Why is it important for understanding, or to understand who we are? Anyone want to jump in? Why is it so important for you to understand who you are?
I feel like it's important for an individual to know who they are, because we as humans, we are like influenced by outside things, and whether our family, our friends, the people that we're surrounded by, whether we want to or not, people are being influenced. So knowing who you are, knowing where you stand, it allows for other influences that come outside where they may be negative, but if you know who you what's that say? Know thyself. If you know who you are, then other things that may not line up with who you want to be in terms of like your destiny and what you want to do for greatness. If you know who you are, if you set that foundation, yeah, there may be things that may like knock it over, but if you have that foundation, you can always build upon it again. So that's why it's important to know who you are.
That's good. Who was that? I'm sorry. Who was that just shared?
My name is Joshua. I'm an incoming freshman.
Joshua, thank you. Thanks for dropping that knowledge. One more person. Somebody else want to share. That was good.
I can go ahead and go. I want to piggyback off of what Joshua was saying. My mom has always kind of told me that that if you don't stand for anything, no, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And it's important to understand, like who you are, and like like what are your morals, and what you stand for and what you stand against. Like so like when you like know yourself and like who and what you stand for, like it's how do I say this? It becomes a lot harder for like outside forces to take you out of your character, basically. So yeah, that's why I think it's important to understand and like know who you are.
That's good. Thank you. And what's your name again, brother?
Robert.
Robert, thank you, Robert and Joshua, for chiming in. You guys hit it on the head. That is perfect. I might as well just end this conversation right now and let y'all go, because y'all did a good job. But absolutely, I don't know what else I can add to that, because knowing who you are is important. Because if you don't know who you are, as you all have stated, it creates space for others to begin to find who you are. Be it your family, and granted, some people may have good intentions. They may be your parents, or they may be somebody else they have good intentions, but that's not truly who you are. Once you realize who you are, you stop accepting stuff that's beneath you. You stop accepting things because you know how you should be treated. Once you're in a relationship, if you don't know who you are coming into a relationship, then he or she is going to be telling you who you are and you need to be this. And you're like, wait a minute, that's not me. To thine own self be true. If anybody can relate, just snap your fingers. You've got to know who you are going into the relationship. There's two quotes that I love. One, it says, if you allow people to control the way you think, you do not have to assign them an inferior status. If necessary, they will seek it for themselves. So if I can tell you who you are and then assign you an inferior status, you start believe that. And when you start believing that, you start acting like that. Does that make sense? So you've got to know exactly who you are. The other quote that I love says the greatest threat to the lives of, it says African descent, but men of color, I'm interjecting that in general, is not drugs, it's not gangs, it's not violence, it's not poverty or racism, but rather it's the need for mental liberation. Because a lot of us can be out of jail, but we still have this mental mental box that we're stuck in. And in order for us to go to that next level, especially in society, we've got to know who we are. So my first point is that commit to understanding who you are, and it's going to be work. It's going to be work. The second point is commit to understanding the framework. An essential framework is an essential supporting structure, such as a building. The second definition, the framework is a basic structure underlying the system. So there is a system that has been created. We call that a framework. We've got to understand the system. And some of examples of these systems, one, black on black crime, black on brown violence, brown on brown violence, toxic masculinity, victims of prison industrial system complex, lack of access to resources, the system that keeps the poor poor and the rich rich. Some would say that even the police system and the higher education system and internalized colonization. These are all systems that may have been created to keep those who have having, if you will, for lack of a better term, and those without to keep them without, if that makes sense. So in order for us to effectively dismantle, which is my third point, these systems, this systematic racism, the system that is set up for us to fail, we first got to understand the framework, which then takes me to my third point. My third point is then after you know who you are, because there's no way that you can understand something else unless you understand who you are in the system, and then commit, and what was the second one? Commit to understanding the framework. And then the third and final one is commit to dismantling and building. So it's not enough for us understanding who we are. It's not enough for us to understand the framework and what's going on. The third step is commit to dismantling and building. And how do we do that? These are some examples. One, not settling for that second-class citizenship. Once you know who you are, you don't accept just anything. You begin to walk in the air of greatness. You begin to say, you know what, I deserve more than this. I deserve better than this. Another way of dismantling and building is committing to the best version of yourself. Bring meaningful change to people and student lives. Pushing against the status quo of colorblindness by recognizing and celebrating difference through dialogue and group readings and reflections. Contribute to the collective active construction of Black and brown narratives. Pushing against the status quo of colorblindness, as I've stated before, by recognizing and celebrating differences through these dialogues, through these conversations, which I previously mentioned. This is how you dismantle and build, because it's not just enough to tear it down. We've got to build it up. If we tear it down, what are we going to replace it with? So it's our job to build up, not just tear down. Does that make sense? So the last thing I'm sharing with you is how do we tie this all together? And I want you all to walk away from this understanding that you were meant for greatness. We've already defined greatness is not the GOAT, the greatest of all time. It is our ability to positively affect others. That sort of encapsulates our greatness. And I need all of us to understand before we walk away here, and I'm closing this, is that you were meant for greatness. Geraldo, if you can put up the presentation again. I want to show that last slide. and then I'm done, and then we're going to have a quick conversation. Is this making sense to everyone? If so, snap, clap your hands, do something so I can see that I'm all right. Cool beans. All right, so this last thing is, at CSUDH, our goal is to transform lives. Being a part of the Male Success Alliance, that's who we are, and that's our intention, not just to have you here, but also to improve access, retention. You know this, graduation rate for boys and men of color by providing academic support, professional development, mentoring. This is the closing comment that I want you to understand. It's on the other side of that. I'm not sure if it's your left or right, but you are meant for greatness. You are stronger, smarter, and more resilient than you think. That's committing to understanding the framework. It takes facing our fears. I'm sorry, I did. Then you believe. That's knowing who you are. You are meant for greatness, like all of those who achieved it. But it takes persistence. It takes determination. That's that committed to understanding the framework. It's going to take work. It takes facing our fears, because a lot of times when we're trying to determine who we are, we've got to face some things that we ordinarily would not have faced before. So that takes persistence. It takes facing our fears and doing what is hard and necessary. That's dismantling and building instead of what's quick and easy. It takes skipping the mythical shortcuts and using your imagination as a map and preview of life's coming attractions. That's that conscious future. You got to understand that you have an intentional commitment path to greatness, and that is your conscious future. You have to see it and then act with intention. And every last one of us needs to understand that we're destined for greatness. So if you don't get anything else, make sure you understand that.